Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. The Pentagon says it's investigating evidence an airdrop of arms intended for Kurdish fighters has ended up in the hands of Islamic State militants. Pentagon spokesperson John Kirby responded to a video posted on YouTube which appears to show the militants with a cache of weapons.
They are certainly of the kinds of material that was dropped, with small arms, ammunition, and weaponry. So it's not out of the realm of the possible in that regard. But again, we're taking a look at this, and we just don't know. And when we have something definitive that we can provide in terms of an assessment on that, we'll do that. I do want to add, though, that we are very confident that the vast majority of the bundles did end up in the right hands. In fact, we're only aware of one bundle that did not.
Rear Admiral Kirby said the U.S. had targeted the one bundle that went astray with an airstrike. The airdrops come as part of an effort to defend the Syrian town of Kobani. The Obama administration had previously said Kobani was not a part of its strategic objective, but the Wall Street Journal reports the U.S. was actually working very closely with Syrian Kurdish commanders in secret to defend Kobani. Islamic State militants have renewed their assault on Yazidi religious minorities around Sinjar Mountain in Iraq. Back in August, the militants advanced stranded thousands on the mountain. Obama cited their plight when he authorized U.S. airstrikes in Iraq. On Tuesday, a senior UN official said the Yazidis appear to be facing an attempted genocide. The World Health Organization has announced plans to begin trials of experimental Ebola vaccines with tens of thousands of people in West Africa as early as January. Initial safety trials have already begun and are set to expand to hundreds of volunteers in the United States, Europe, and Africa. Earlier today, a top Red Cross official said the Ebola epidemic in West Africa can be contained in 4 to 6 months. The Obama administration has imposed new travel restrictions for passengers from the countries hardest hit by Ebola. The rules force passengers coming from Guinea, Liberia, and Sierra Leone to pass through one of the 5 U.S. airports, which have implemented enhanced screening. Meanwhile, an American cameraperson being treated for Ebola in Nebraska and a Spanish nurse who was the first person to contract the virus outside Africa have both been declared Ebola-free. The cultivation of opium poppies in Afghanistan reached an all-time high last year, despite more than $7 billion in U.S. funds to combat the drug trade. In a new report, the Special Inspector General for Afghanistan Reconstruction, John Sopko, said the record levels, quote, call into question the long-term effectiveness and sustainability of U.S. efforts. North Korea has released an American prisoner who had been held for 5 months. Jeffrey Fowle was arrested in May for leaving a Bible in his hotel room. State Department spokesperson Marie Harf said the U.S. is continuing to push for the release of 2 other Americans still imprisoned in North Korea, Kenneth Bae and Matthew Miller. People around the world are joining an International Day of Action today over the disappearance of 43 students ambushed by police in the Mexican state of Guerrero. The Mexican government has offered rewards for information on the students who've been missing for over 3 weeks. In a separate case, Mexico's Human Rights Commission has concluded soldiers carried out a mass execution and attempted to cover it up. The Mexican army claimed it killed 22 suspected gang members in a shootout last summer in the state of Mexico, but the commission found 15 people were likely executed, a number of them lined up and shot. 3 soldiers are facing murder charges. A U.S. Marine suspected of murdering a transgender woman in the Philippines has been transferred to a military camp in Manila after protesters said he was receiving special treatment. Joseph Scott Pemberton was previously being kept on a U.S. Navy ship while Philippine authorities investigate the murder of Jennifer Loud. He's been moved to an air-conditioned van where he's guarded by fellow Marines. Protests have targeted the Visiting Forces Agreement, which lets U.S. soldiers in the Philippines remain in U.S. custody throughout judicial proceedings. President Benigno Aquino defended the accord.
The treaty serves a purpose for our country as it serves a purpose for America. And we live, we are imperfect beings, and this is an imperfect world. One instance of things that nobody, I believe, really wants to happen has happened, but the tragedy, will be settled in that the guilty will be made to answer for the crime.
In the United States, federal safety regulators are urging the owner of 7.8 million vehicles made by 10 different companies to act immediately to replace defective airbags. The airbags made by the Japanese company Takata can explode when activated, spraying occupants with sharp metal fragments. The defect has been linked to 4 deaths. Wyoming has become the 32nd state where same-sex marriage is now legal. The move is part of the fallout from a Supreme Court decision earlier this month rejecting appeals from 5 states that sought to ban marriage equality. And former Washington Post editor Ben Bradlee has died at the age of 93. Bradlee served as executive editor of the Washington Post from 1968 to 1991, presiding over its publication of the Pentagon Papers and its coverage of the Watergate scandal, which forced President Richard Nixon to resign. In 1971, Washington Post reporter Betty Metzger received documents stolen by activists from an FBI office in Media, Pennsylvania, including one bearing the mysterious term COINTELPRO. Metzger spoke on Democracy Now! About how Ben Bradlee fought to publish the story, even though the Washington Post publisher, Katharine Graham, initially had qualms.
It was the first time that she had been faced with a demand from the Nixon administration that she suppress a story. And she did not want to publish, and the in-house counsel, the lawyers, also did not want to publish. But 2 editors from the beginnings realized it was a very important story and pushed it, Ben Bradlee and Ben Bagdikian.
Ben Bradlee died at home of natural causes on Tuesday. And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. United